Meet Danny Bonaduce, a 1985 Toyota 4Runner getting some upgrades. One of those mods is a conversion from an automatic transmission to a manual. On today's episode, Gnob inspects the four-wheel drive transmission he planned to use for this build and discovers that the gears are no bueno. But if you know Gnob, you know he never throws away parts, so of course he has a two-wheel drive transmission as a backup plan. Today in the Snale Racing Garage, watch as Gnob tears down two transmissions, swaps the gear sets, and builds Danny a new tranny.
So I'll open up this case, make sure this transmission is not garbage. Yeah, and there's like something in there, some Marble Mystery Oil or something. Something going on in there. I'm going to pull the case off, transfer case off, then I'm going to open up the case, just make sure everything looks copacetic on the inside before we bother bolting it up. Alrighty, so I got the case unbolted. Looks something like that on the inside. And here's what the inside of the tail housing looks like. There was a little bit of lube in there, which means probably that seal was seeping a tiny bit, or the transfer case was leaking. I guess it looks like it could have been leaking there. But this seal is kind of problematic on these trannies. It's actually somewhat common for whatever reason for that seal to drop, and then your tranny spits out all the fluid into this void right here. There's not supposed to be any fluid in there, and then it's smoky smoke screen. So like I said, it looks pretty good. It doesn't really look like I was pulling any metal out of here, but there is definitely some sort of additive in the tranny that's not tranny fluid. So like I said, I'm going to go ahead and get the case open now and see what's going on. Alright, so underneath of this housing is where your input seal goes. There's your seal right there. You can see that? There's your seal right there. These retainer rings have to come off for the case to come off. That way the bearing can push back through the case right there. Okay, so what we're looking at in here, or looking for, I should say, is any signs of damage, any signs of there being no lube. One thing that's pretty common with these is these are an aluminum shift fork. So if you see, you know, like I was saying, if they run out of oil or whatever, you will see wear here. You see like there's no wear really there, it looks good. Same thing with this one here. His fingers are nice and tight in there. We don't see any stupid wear on the counter gears. We can see the flatness. We can see the flat rise on all these gears, which means it hasn't been run low on oil. Overall, it looks really good. So we're going to just get it cleaned up and get it ready to go back in the truck right now. Or not right now, but probably tomorrow, I think is what's going to go on with that. So yeah, tranny looks good. Super stoked about that. Like I said, some people just put shit in there for whatever reason, but all these bearings feel good. None of them are making any serious noise or anything like that I noticed. So like I said, I'm more concerned about the tranny being run low on oil at some point. When I first built the other truck, you know, I got Craigslist again, 100 bucks for a tranny or whatever, which was the going price back then. Again, that's been like 13 years ago plus, back when you could buy shit super cheap. Anyway, long story short, that tranny didn't have, it had third gear, but it had been run out of oil and the shift fork was completely smashed in it. So what I'll do is I'll post a couple pictures of that right there, of the old tranny, how it was grenaded, how you can see where that shift fork was all completely roasted. And yeah, and not. So another good thing about this one is you see that It just got the factory sealant in there, which means no one's been in here before. Like I said, we'll just go ahead and get this guy cleaned up and it'll be a good candidate to go back in. So I let the tranny sit around for a couple days and get drained down, get all that other fluid or whatever the hell was off on there, because I don't like taking a bath in it anyway. So long story short, this tranny's got some damage in it as well. So let's look at that real quick. Rust all over the input shaft on these other drive gears here. That's just going to be too noisy and annoying to deal with, I think. And it probably is going to make the tranny weaker. So I've been sitting on this other tranny for however long, I don't know, 5 or 6 years or whatever. This is a 2-wheel drive R150. So my understanding is they're going to be basically the same identically, aside from the tail shaft. So I should be able to get in here and get the good gears out of it and then put it back together. Not really ideal situation, but it's a little more free, I think, than trying to find another tranny. Because back in the day, probably before 3.4 liter swaps started getting really big, people were literally just throwing away these 3-liter trucks and all the parts so you could pick up these R150 trannies for super cheap. So anyway, what's going to go on here is I'm going to tear this tranny down, get it opened up, give it a really good inspection, and make sure that we've got good parts here, and build one good tranny out of 2. Okay, well, I didn't really want to have to rebuild a tranny, but such is life, I guess. So I do have the manual. Luckily, we'll go through that with you and show you what's going on. So I showed you how to get it out of the case. It's pretty straightforward. If you can't get it out of the case, you shouldn't be working on it. There's your magnet. So basically, this is our manual. We did all that, and we did all that. Got the case off. That was the magnet that we're showing you. It's mounted in the vise now. Now we're going to remove the locking balls and stuff from the shift stuff. I'm going to give you a little bit of Toyota internet legend here, and this is like how you break away from that legend. So everybody wants to chase the R151 turbo tranny, right? Because then you can bolt the gear drive transfer case up there, and you can have duals and super low gear and all that other good stuff, right? Okay, so that's all good and fine if you can find those trannies, because they made turbos trannies for like 2 years, I think, is the actual production number of the R151. Versus they made so many different years of the R150 tranny, right? So if you want the R151 for the money, it used to be at least, if you could find these trannies, just buy the adapter plate. Okay, you buy this tranny for $100, a couple $100, even $500. You buy the plate, you're still in it less than the grand or the $1,200 or $1,500 these people are trying to get for these turbo trannies. Okay, the other benefit to this versus going the turbo tranny is the tail housing. Okay, so this is your R150 tail housing. Stick goes in here in the exact same place it would be like in a W56 or whatever, right? So a turbo tranny is a forward shift. Your stick's up here, your transfer case is in this tail housing. So what that does is it shifts this forward, like way up here, and now that stick comes out and people have problems with that getting into the console and all that stuff. My advice to you is if you're having problems finding the 151, just that tranny off, buy one of these and buy the adapter plate. Time and money saved, basically, is the long and short of that. It's identically the same transmission otherwise inside. The only difference is the R150 has the female to female collar. That's it. I assume you probably can't buy the tail housings, but if you could just find the R151 tail housing and the sleeve, then you could just bolt it up the gear drive case, right? All right, first piece, little snap ring. So then the next piece has to come off as this bearing. I'll grab the bearing removal tool. This isn't really the ideal tool for this, but at y'all. The bearing comes off. This is just a collar. It slides on there like that. Like I said, here we got all this done. This one doesn't actually go here. I don't know that's just straight up wrong. But that's the sleeve that I'm talking about, like with the R151 or with the W56 to go into the spline gear drive. Okay, so this is the bearing that I took off. That spacer just slides on. I checked rust right here, and it was like, to me, it felt like about 6 thousandths or so, right in that range. And so now I'm going to go ahead and pull this nut off and get that rear that fifth gear stuff coming off. Spin that nut off. Get to use several different pullers with this whole job. So, steering wheel puller style. Okay, here's your fifth gear hub. You don't want to drop the synchro clickers out of there. And this whole piece just slides off. There's a thrust washer back here that's on there. Ball right here. Gonna come out. Yeah. Okay, now the plate should come off. This should just come out. Alright, there's that guy. Alright, so now that it locks out of here, we can pull out the shaft. This is the reverse idler shaft. And there's no keys or anything in there. And so that is the keyway right there. Now we're back to another set of snap rings. One. There's two. And he's going to come out as a unit. Drop that. Explode everything everywhere. Alright, well, there's one. That went really well. Okay, so part two, part D. This one's obviously a little bit different because two-wheel drive has a different tail shaft here, and that's really about it. So this snap ring is going to have to come off differently to free up this speedo gear. There's probably a detent underneath there. But otherwise, the disassembly is going to be pretty much exactly the same as what we did before. Try to. I didn't really take the shift fork apart. Right, going the other way. So this one is just a little bit dirtier on the inside. That other one appeared to have had the tranny in, or the fluid in and out of there earlier. And like I said, that's why it had the Lucas in there. This tranny though is nice and shiny as well on the inside. So yeah. Alright, so again, we start in the same place. So I'm going to take apart slightly differently, I guess. Be about the same. So some of this is like super important that you go to follow directions and take the shafts out as a unit. The first time I ever did one of these, I was trying to get this gear off, like in the car or whatever. I don't know what I was thinking. Anyway, I ended up breaking that one. So I had to wait a downtime to go get a different one and all that. That always sucks. So at least I have 2 trannies here, so if I break something, I have an extra one. If I don't break the extra one too. All right. Okay. So what I did here was just get this reverse clicker out of the way. Again, same thing like on the other one. Again, we just take these out, all the detents. So you should have a spring, and you should have a ball. And the other thing you gotta do is bang this guy out of there. Piece fell out right there. It's the interlock ball. I'll take this guy out of there. Basically, that first ball falls out of this, out of that center hole there. Drop the interlock pill on the floor. It comes out of the shift rail right there. This is your reverse shift rail, so you want to make sure this doesn't fall off on the other side here. Grab that guy like that. All right. There's that guy. Pill. I guess I'll take this lower one out first. There's going to be a pill in here as well. A little stuck. Again, another pill in the rail there. So it should just come out. No pill in this one. Okay, so again, this is different than the 4-wheel drive that we got the speedo drive right here, but this comes off the same as that other one basically. Somebody likes me today. So that's why we don't really like that method. It comes out of the way like that there. That works better. So it works better if you can just tap it like that a little bit, get it up off the shaft, and get a pick or something behind it. Then you don't zing it across the room. Of course, unless you like zinging shit across the room and then chasing it. Again, just peel it up a little bit, then you can pull it out. Don't forget to get that ball out of there. Your speedo drive ball. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is, since this tail shaft is super long and I don't have a puller that can reach to here, or I mean I do, but my clamshell you could see was getting into the 5th gear hub. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this hub off So I think I can pull the hub off first. And then that should give me enough room to get the clamshell in this spot. Hopefully. Hopefully, maybe. Yeah. Okay. We got that guy. Pull the synchro off. No, not quite. Nope. Nope. Come on with this, dude. Yes, this is probably not the ideal tool for this, but it's what it is. Harbor Freight Special. So here we are back here. We'll take this plate out, and then we'll take the gear clusters out, and then we can start to go back together. So this one's down, the snap ring's off, it's ready to come out of the plate. There's the ball right there. You can see the gear clusters are the same. You know, again, you can see the rust on the input shaft here, and that's pretty much what we're trying to get away from. There's rust on this reverse hub and stuff. We don't really want to deal with that. The counter gear, I thought I saw some rust on it earlier, but regardless, you kind of want to keep the same gear sets meshing, so I don't really want to use the old counter gear with the new gear. I'm going to disassemble these two main shafts, throw away the two-wheel drive shaft, and swap it out with the four-wheel drive shaft. The other thing that I kind of wanted to mention while we're right here is how good you can see, like the way the backing's melting away from that bearing. It's easier to see on this one. See how that cover is like kind of melted away? It looks like it's trying to melt away or whatever. Rad. The cover on this bearing is not like that. It's all nice and super nice. So anyway, that's what we're doing. So we are at step 34. Let's walk over to the press. All right, now let the shaft out. Okay, so next there's a snap ring right here that needs to come off. All right, we got that. We got those off. This bearing goes on here like this. Okay. Now we're to that screen right there. On the other end is an actual snap ring right here. So I'm going to get that guy off. Here's the second shaft. Oh my God, really? Okay, I'm gonna pull a couple snap rings off. furious. So we got that snap ring in there. I'm gonna have to rebuild this hub up front, but like that. There it is. Got the shafts all pressed together. We went ahead and installed them back into the plate. And then what we do is you put the snap ring on underneath there. Run this through there. You got to reinstall that. Then you reinstall the plate and those 4 bolts. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. This snap ring, even though I took it out, doesn't need to come out. And come back around this side. And now we're putting the reverse arm gear thing back in here. So this is the next piece that goes on. Those are just 12mm head bolts, or like a whatever that is, a 5, 4, 6, something like that. So this guy goes on there. Like that there. So you want to take your little ball that goes back in the sleeve there like that at 12 o'clock. Then we will take this piece. So the 5th gear hub goes on like that. Back on the back of this piece right here, right, we got the hub on. You got to put the roller bearing in here, then the hub, assemble the hub. Then you can just tap this, the actual hub piece back on, okay? So not real hard. Just give it a little tap-roo. You run this new nut back on there, and that end is all done. So you'll run this up, spike it, call it good. Then that other bearing needs to go on here. So we're gonna start with this rear fork on the 5th gear. This next piece will go in here. Okay, I'm gonna try to be really clear with this because this is kind of the hardest part in my opinion. So you've got this kind of layered on right here. What's up is we have this size ball right here. So there's one that's an interlock in between here, and there's also one that's an interlock in between this case, okay? First rail goes in, then you drop a ball in here, and then you drop a ball not through here, but it would be what would be on top of that. You could, in fact, I'm gonna leave them out, but you could detent it right here as well. Okay, so far I have 2 balls in there. You get this first rail in there, you get the 2 interlocks in here. The second one that's gonna go in is this guy here with nothing on it, right? It's got the spot for that pill, so we'll put the pill in there and then we will install. So this shift rail is the other side one here, right? That one also gets the interlock pill. So when these go in, this one and this one get the small interlock pill, okay? Between this one and this one inside the housing is the other large interlock pill button or whatever, okay? So this rail comes up in here. That snap ring has to go back in right there. In fact, I need to put the shift fork on first. So the shift fork will go on here. So this 3rd shift rail goes on. This needs to be positioned. Then you run the shaft through here. Then you snap this guy on. So that leaves you with this guy. All right, like that. So now this last interlock pill. Then we can take this last shift fork and it goes in the last hole. Alrighty kids, so there is how we went back together. Put a little bit of blue Loctite on these shift fork things. You don't want them to fall out. Those three. A little bit of sealant on those guys. And then one other thing I kind of want to talk about while we're here is these trannies are infamous for, like, you know, you think you take them out of the truck, you'd want to take it out of the truck in neutral or just running around in neutral or whatever. But what goes on with this tranny in particular is because reverse is on this side of the plate, right? So this is the front. When you go to like set the tranny down like this, what happens is this is your reverse right here, okay? Because it's so big and heavy, this will just slide in and engage, right? So what happens is you set the tranny down, the thing falls into gear, you go to put the stick in the truck, and now it's locked in gear. First time that happened to me, I ended up taking the case back off, and it was really dumb. I went to work that day and the guys are like, oh yeah, it's just the reverse thing. I was like, yeah, well, I was already that far. So anyway, what happens is if you end up doing that, the easiest thing to do is when the tranny's back together, if it's stuck in gear, take the reverse switch out. This just pulls out. It will show you the detent in that reverse rail or wherever the reverse switch is. This is the detent right here. So what happens is you'll just reach in there and you'll click that back with a screwdriver. Then your tranny's back in neutral again. So just for some food for thought, if you had something like that going on, the tranny ever got locked in gear, that is how you get it out. And that's the only way I've ever seen that fall. It will fall into reverse, and that's about it. Otherwise, that is the long and short of gutting a two-wheel drive transmission and turning it into a good four-wheel drive transmission. So I don't know if I ended up getting this on video. Let's see here. Oh yeah, there we go. So that is like rust and rot in these gears, and I assume that would have been super noisy and annoying. The other thing this really doesn't show me like it's a branded gear. That doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it's kind of sketch. So you can see this is a Nachi, this is an NSK gear. And then when you come over here, like the other thing I wanted to talk about is this is that plate bearing. So this is like the main, one of the main bearings in there. You can see that that's been heated at some point. And I almost want to pull that cover off of there. Maybe I will. Anyway, that's all heated, so you kind of can't trust that. Normally that means there's been damage in there. So, I don't know. Basically the way the matrix works is you eventually get what you got. Something to that effect. So I've been sitting on that tranny for days because of my last R series tranny fiasco. I figured I may as well have some insurance in case I got another shitty four-wheel drive R series trans, and that's what happened. So luckily I've been sitting on that tranny, like I said, for several years. It's a golden shower. It looks super nice. You can see this is yeah, so this will be out. I'll just hit that with a wire wheel. We'll call it good. All I really care about, that sealing surface is good. All right, and then like I said, I don't know why the book shows that collar on there. Maybe they use a different collar in Japan, or a different transfer case in Japan. Not really sure what up, or they just recycled the deal. But anyway, what will go on here now is this is your drive coupler, right? This will go in here like this. Just hammer it on. A bit of fretting on that output, I guess. So we'll clean the Chinese off of this thing. We'll beat it on there like that. That will go on there like that. This is the output piece that goes in the back of the transmission. So it will go like this. Then the seal will seal against that. All right, good morning. We are back at it again, getting this transmission back together. So basically what went on this morning is I just cleaned it up and glued the plates back together. Okay. No real rocket science going on in there. Like I said, you just got to make sure those shift rails go into the holes that they go to. And then the same thing on the shift fork deal. So what goes on is your shift rail selector obviously has to kind of sit down into the forks in there like you saw, so you just stick it in there and then you feed it in there, and then the shift fork grabber needs to be launched in there. So you sort of got to hold your mouth just right, but it's really not that big of a deal. I went ahead and glued it with the right stuff, and then I was going to show you what's up with this coupler. Okay, so like we talked about yesterday, you want to make sure that you get all the china off this, that cosmoline shit. Okay, so I went in there and wiped it down with brake cleaner, and then wire brushed the inside out with brake cleaner as well. So that should be good to go now. Again, this is the seal holder coupler deal. You can see this has two sized ends. Okay, the small end will go into the tranny, and the large end holds the seal, and then that adapts into the adapter plate. So there's that collar installed. Pretty simple. You just tap it down in there until it's on the snap ring. There's that installed. So here is the actual adapter plate. Pretty basic. Inchworm Jim. That is some old school stuff right there. So this is pretty straightforward. This side bolts to the tranny. This side bolts to the gear drive cases. Basically it's going to go on there like that. Pretty straightforward. You got a couple Allen heads and it'll all go down. But this one also does not come drilled for your case. We have a 0 and a 10-degree designation. That's in case you want to, like I said, your plate would be on that side, so you would clock the transfer case. And what that does is it pushes your drive line up further. So you're clocking it if you're looking forward in the car, so you'd either go there or you'd go there. Right. So what I recommend you do here, since not all the holes are marked, so we have 0, it'll be the run to the right. I went ahead and marked all the holes. I don't know if you can see them that good. Just for your own sanity, mark the holes. And then I'm going to drill them out. Okay, here, so what she looks like all drilled out. So that's the other side. So here's the side with its holes, selector holes, to the right, to the right, to the right. What I did, I went around them all and like cleaned them up, chamfered the holes on both sides. So that way they're all nice and clean and it will lay down nice and flat. Now I drag that case over here and get it ready. Alright, so another little quickie while we're here. The tranny is all the way basically put together. I didn't put the front plate on it just because of the way you kind of have to assemble it. So anyway, where we're at right now is I'm going to put the front plate on it. This is your part number for the input seal, bearing retainer seal as it's referred to, and the manual. That'll be for your V6 R series trannies. This is your front bearing retainer plate. Alright, there's where your throwout bearing rides. And then just kind of want to show you this. The book shows you where to put the goo on the plate. It gives you an idea, so you know you're not like in here thinking you need to put it on this or whatever. Obviously, looking at the front plate, it just needs to be a perimeter seal, but anyway, just a little food for thought, I guess. So the other piece of that I wanted to talk about right here is when you go to install the seal in here, you might think that it wants to be flush here, and depending on the size of the seal it may be, but it needs to be all the way in the bottom of that well. If that's not the case, it can get on this ring here, and then that ring will tear that seal up. So just a couple pieces we want to touch on there real quick. I'm going to go ahead and get that seal installed, and then we're going to install the seal, then we're going to install that guy on that guy. Okay, so that's about what your reveal looks like in there. See how far down it's sat into that plate. Just like that. Obviously when you install the spring is always going towards the fluid you're trying to keep inside. Typical fashion, I was trying like hell to forget parts. So you need to put these snap rings back on here, obviously. installed. Good.
That wraps up another episode of Snale Racing.
Thank you for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe.